You finally win at money. Then one morning, you realize the life you spent decades paying for has quietly become the life you never had time to live. And the bill is already due. At 51, Adrian has $7.4 million. The mortgage is gone. The debt is gone. His investments generate more in a year than his father once earned in 5. By every conventional measure, Adrian has escaped. Yet at 5:47 on a Thursday morning, he is standing alone in his kitchen, staring at one message from his daughter. "Dad, are you coming this time?" He doesn't answer. Not because he doesn't know what to say. Because he does. And he knows she has heard it before. 28 years earlier, Adrian was 23, sitting in a rented apartment with $1,900 in his account and a father who had just lost his job. His father looked at the kitchen table, the unpaid bills, the nearly empty refrigerator. "Money doesn't disappear all at once," he said. "It disappears in little emergencies." Adrian never forgot that sentence. He built his life around avoiding those emergencies. He took the job with the longer hours because it paid more. He accepted the promotion that came with weekends. When everyone else went home, he stayed. When his friends took vacations, he invested. When his first raise arrived, he didn't celebrate. He changed the number he was chasing. $100,000. Then $250,000. Then $500,000. Then $1 million. The first million should have been the finish line. Instead, it became proof that he could go farther. That is how the trap works. The target moves so quietly that you don't notice you're still running. By 38, Adrian had enough money to live comfortably for the rest of his life. But comfort was never what he wanted. He wanted certainty. He wanted the kind of money that made bad news feel survivable. So he kept going. His wife, Claire, noticed what the numbers were hiding. One Saturday morning, she found him answering emails at the kitchen counter while their daughter waited by the front door. "We're leaving in 10 minutes, Claire said. "I know. You said you were coming." "I am." Claire looked at the laptop. "You've been saying that for 10 years. Adrian closed it. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then their daughter picked up her bag. "It's okay, Mom. He has work." That sentence should have stopped him. It didn't. Because Adrian had learned to measure sacrifice in money. A missed dinner was temporary. A missed weekend was manageable. A missed birthday could be made up with a gift. And every time he compensated for time with money, he convinced himself the balance was still in his favor. If this story is already making you think about the number you're chasing, stay with me. And if you believe money should buy you a better life, not just a bigger account, like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what enough would actually mean for you. At 43, Adrian crossed $2 million. At 46, he sold his company. At 49, he crossed $5 million. And somehow, he was working harder than he had at 30. Then his daughter stopped asking. That was the change he almost missed. She stopped asking him to come to dinner. Stopped asking whether he would be home. Stopped asking if he could make the next school event. She had not stopped loving him. She had simply stopped expecting him. Adrian didn't understand what that meant until the message arrived. "Dad, are you coming this time?" Her wedding was 12 days away. He had promised. This time, there was no client emergency. No board meeting. No deal that could collapse without him. Nothing standing between him and the promise except the habits he had spent 28 years building. Adrian opened his calendar. The wedding was highlighted in red. Then he looked at the rest of the month. Meeting after meeting. Flight after flight. Obligation after obligation. A life completely full. And suddenly, the fullness looked like emptiness. Because Adrian had spent decades accumulating the one thing he thought would give him freedom. Money. But money had never been the thing he was missing. Time was. And time had been leaving every day without making a withdrawal from his bank account. That morning, for the first time, Adrian understood something nobody had put on his financial statement. There is a price for becoming wealthy. And sometimes, the most expensive part isn't what you pay to get there. It's what you don't get to take with you. The morning after the message, Adrian does something that feels almost irresponsible. He clears his calendar. No meetings. No calls. No airport. No quick conversations that somehow consume 2 hours. Claire watches him delete appointment after appointment. What happened? I don't know. It is the most honest answer he has given her in years. Then he asks the question he has avoided for just as long. Do you think I missed it? Claire doesn't pretend not to understand. The wedding? No. Everything. She sits across from him. I think you kept believing there would be a moment when you had finally earned the right to start living. Adrian looks down. And you kept moving the moment. That sentence follows him all afternoon. Because the numbers had never lied to him. They had simply answered a different question. His portfolio could tell him how much he owned. It could not tell him how much of his life he had actually experienced. That distinction becomes impossible to ignore when he visits his father that evening. His father is 78 now, living in the same modest house where Adrian grew up. The kitchen is smaller than Adrian remembers. The table still has the same scratch near the corner. His father pours 2 coffees. You look tired. Life. His father smiles. That sounds more expensive. Adrian tells him about the wedding. The message. The empty calendar. The strange feeling that having more money had somehow made the missing years easier to see. His father listens without interrupting. Finally, he says, you know what I remember about being broke? Adrian waits. Not being broke. What do you remember? The people. That answer lands harder than Adrian expects. His father remembers fishing trips that cost almost nothing. A cheap birthday cake. Long evenings on the porch. Adrian riding his bicycle until the streetlights came on. None of it was expensive. And somehow, those were the years Adrian would pay almost anything to revisit. On the drive home, he makes a list. Not financial goals. Life goals. Dinner with Claire every Thursday. 1 week away with his daughter after the wedding. A month without work notifications. A morning with no agenda. He stares at the list. It looks embarrassingly simple. Then he notices something. Every item requires the same currency. Time. And unlike money, time doesn't compound. You cannot invest today's unused hours and withdraw them at 60. You cannot put childhood into an account and recover it when you retire. You cannot refinance a missed conversation. That is where Adrian's story becomes more uncomfortable. His problem is not that he worked hard. Hard work built the life he has. His problem is that he never defined what the work was supposed to end. He treated enough as a number instead of a decision. And numbers are dangerous when they become substitutes for decisions. At $1 million, he needed $2 million. At $2 million, he needed $5 million. At $5 million, he needed just a little more. The amount changed. The fear didn't. The following Monday, Adrian walks into his office and tells his chief operating officer something nobody expects. I want you to run the company. The man stares at him. For how long? Adrian pauses. I'm not sure. For the first time in 28 years, uncertainty feels like freedom instead of danger. But freedom comes with a problem nobody advertises. Once you stop chasing the number, you have to decide what you actually want. Adrian discovers he has spent so long optimizing his finances that he never designed the life those finances were supposed to fund. The house is paid off. The investments are growing. The future is secure. But the present has become unfamiliar. So he starts with something small. He drives to his daughter's apartment without calling first. She opens the door. Dad? I have something to ask you. What? After the wedding, where would you go if you could go anywhere? She smiles. Why? Because I want to go with you. She studies his face. You're serious? Adrian nods. Then she asks the question that quietly changes everything. Will you actually be there? He could promise. He has promised before. Instead, he says, I'm going to make sure I am. It isn't a grand declaration. But for Adrian, it is the first decision in years that isn't designed to make his future safer. It is designed to make his present real. And he still doesn't understand how much this decision is going to cost him. Because once you finally have enough, the hardest question isn't how much more you can make. It's what you're willing to stop sacrificing. 12 days later, Adrian stands at the back of a crowded room and watches his daughter walk toward him. For years, he had imagined this moment as a reward. A successful father. A paid-off house. A daughter with every opportunity he could afford to give her. But standing there, Adrian realizes something much harder. He didn't give her everything. He gave her everything money could buy. And there were things money never could. The ceremony ends. People gather around them. Photos. Hugs. Champagne. Conversations. Then his daughter leans toward him. Dad. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Adrian smiles. I promised. She looks at him. You finally kept one. He laughs. But the sentence stays with him. Not because it hurts. Because it is true. That night, Adrian doesn't check his portfolio. He doesn't open his email. He doesn't calculate what the market did that day. For the first time in decades, he doesn't need a number to tell him whether the day was successful. He already knows. And that is when the story could end. The wealthy man finally learns to slow down. He chooses family. He travels. He enjoys his money. He lives happily ever after. But real life is rarely that clean. Because the hardest part of becoming financially free isn't reaching the point where you can stop working. It's discovering whether you know how to live once you stop. 3 months later, Adrian sells the last company he still controls. The transaction makes him another $1.1 million. Everyone congratulates him. His financial advisor calls it a fantastic outcome. Adrian thanks him. Then he closes the laptop. The next morning, he wakes up at 6:03. No meetings. No calls. No urgent messages. Nothing demanding his attention. He makes coffee. Sits outside. And after 20 minutes, he feels restless. After 40 minutes, he feels guilty. By noon, he is answering emails he doesn't need to answer. By 3, he is looking at businesses he could invest in. By 5, he has built himself another project. Claire watches from across the room. You're doing it again. Adrian looks up. Doing what? Finding something to chase. He doesn't respond. Because she is right. The habit was never really about money. Money was simply the object he could measure. The deeper addiction was progress. Always another target. Another deal. Another milestone. Another reason tomorrow was supposed to be better than today. And suddenly Adrian sees the final trap. You can escape financial insecurity without escaping the mindset that created it. You can have millions in the bank and still behave like the next emergency is coming. You can own your time and still feel guilty for using it. You can retire from your career without retiring from the fear that drove it. That is why wealth doesn't automatically create freedom. Sometimes it only removes the excuse. When you are broke, you can say, I have no choice. When you are financially secure, that excuse disappears. Now you have to admit something uncomfortable. You chose. You chose the extra year. The extra promotion. The extra deal. The extra house. The extra level of lifestyle. And sometimes you chose them because they were necessary. Sometimes because they were wise. And sometimes because stopping would have forced you to confront the question you were avoiding. What is all this for? Adrian finally answers it. Not with another number. With a boundary. He decides what enough means. Not because more money is bad. Not because ambition is wrong. Not because working hard was a mistake. But because money is supposed to be a tool. And a tool becomes dangerous when you forget what you were building with it. He keeps his investments. Keeps the house. Keeps enough capital that his family will never have to panic over a bill. But he changes the way he measures a good week. 3 dinners with Claire. 1 long walk with his daughter. A morning with no schedule. A trip he doesn't turn into a work conference. A Tuesday afternoon spent doing absolutely nothing. The old Adrian would have called that wasted time. The new Adrian understands something different. It is the point. Years later, someone asks him what changed. You had everything, the man says. Why didn't you stop sooner? Adrian thinks about the question. Then he says. Because I thought I was trying to get rich. He pauses. I was actually trying to feel safe. And that distinction explains an entire lifetime. Because there will always be another number. Another house. Another investment. Another promotion. Another reason to wait. But there is no financial product that lets you buy yesterday. No investment strategy that compounds missed birthdays. No portfolio allocation that restores a conversation you were too busy to have. And no amount of money can make a life feel full if you spent the whole journey postponing the part you actually wanted. So maybe the question isn't whether you are making enough money. Maybe it's whether your money is buying the life you think it is. Because one day, the account will be large enough. The house will be paid off. The debt will be gone. The future will finally look secure. And you may look around the room and realize something nobody warned you about. You didn't lose the game. You won. You just waited so long to collect the prize that some of the things you wanted it for are no longer waiting for you. That is the bill. Not the money you spent. Not the taxes. Not the opportunity cost on a spreadsheet. The bill is every moment you were physically present but mentally somewhere else. Every dinner where your phone mattered more. Every vacation you couldn't enjoy because you were checking work. Every later. Every after this. Every time you told yourself you were doing it for the people you loved while quietly becoming unavailable to them. Money can give you a better future. But it cannot guarantee that you'll recognize the future when it arrives. So if you're chasing a number right now, chase it with your eyes open. Know what the money is for. Know what enough looks like. And most importantly, know what you refuse to sacrifice to get there. Because the goal was never to die with the biggest number. The goal was to build a life you don't need to escape from. And sometimes, the richest decision you can make isn't earning another million. It's finally deciding that today is allowed to count.